All right, everybody. Here is a couple of videos, series of videos on how to update your Express LRS in both your transmitter and in your receiver. Okay. This will be the same process no matter what type of receiver or transmitter you have. If you have the Zorro or if you have the other receiver for the other class, it doesn't matter. I'll show you what those differences are in the video, but just realize it's pretty much the same process. You just select a different device that you're going to update instead of these devices. So whatever you have should work with this process. There are tons of videos on YouTube about how to do this, but none, I guess, as quite specifically with our class materials. So perhaps this will be helpful. Like I said, there's tons of videos on how to do this on YouTube, but we'll go through it together as well here. All right, so for this process, you'll be updating your transmitter. So you need your transmitter with a battery in it, okay, charged a decent amount, and your USB cable that comes with your transmitter, okay. So in most cases, pretty much everyone, it should be a USB-C cable. And you have that for your transmitter updating. For your receiver updating, you're going to need, of course, your receiver. Okay, you need some way to power your receiver. So in my case, I have a battery and an ESC that I can use to power the receiver. You can use the ESC from your plane. If you have another way to power the receiver, you can do that. Instead of having a battery, you can have the wall power adapter that we buy for class, the XT60 power adapter. It doesn't really matter. You just need some way to power this thing. I'm going to use a battery since it's a little bit easier for me in this video format here. Okay, sorry for the weird numbers on the top of the screen. Let's see up here. I had to invert the video a couple times to get it to be the right direction so we can see everything. So just bear with me on that. And I can't get rid of those numbers unfortunately. So they'll be at the top of the screen. That's all right. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to do our transmitter first. Okay. So we have our transmitter here. This is an Express LRS transmitter with Express LRS built in. Okay. Most of you have bought this type if you bought it for class. Okay. You can see ELRS. So this has an internal Express LRS module. Okay. If you bought a different radio and you have an external Express LRS module, that process will be a little bit different. I can show you how to do that as well in a different video, but for right now I'm going to focus on this internal module because it's what most of you have bought for class. Okay, so the cool thing is we can use basically the operating system on the radio, EdgeTX, as a vehicle or a pass-through to update the Express LRS radio module that's inside the radio. So EdgeTX is like the operating system. Express LRS is the actual like broadcasting radio module that's inside the radio. Okay, so to do that, most of your radios will already be ready to do that, but there are some exceptions. So I'm going to show you how to check and make sure your EdgeTX version is up to date enough to do Express LRS updates through the radio operating system. Okay, we're going to go through an EdgeTX update as well, just to get that out there. But let's go ahead and turn our radio on. There we go. Let's zoom in a little bit more here so we can see the screen better as well as the buttons I'm pressing. Okay, so to make sure your EdgeTX version is updated, so think about a version update being like Windows 10, Windows 11. What version are we on? We're going to hold this or press the Sys key, and then we have this 1 out of 7 pages here, so you can use the page button and scroll over until you get all the way to the last page version. Okay, 7 out of 7. All right, so we can see here on the screen, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so EdgeTX TX12 Mark II, that's the name of my radio. Okay, version is 2.8.0. Okay, and that is basically, I think, well, 2.7 might be the minimum, but if you have 2.8, most of the radios come with 2.8, from now on, basically. That is a new enough version of radio operating system or of EdgeTX for you to use the built-in Express LRS update functionality. Okay, but let's say you check this on your radio and you're on 2.5 or something like that, or 2.7 or 2.3, whatever it is. Okay, I'm going to show you how to update the EdgeTX on your radio. That way you can then update your Express LRS. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out here a little bit. So to update EdgeTX on your radio, it's actually pretty simple. They have some pretty cool tools for it now. It's not as painful as it used to be. It wasn't actually that bad, but they made it even easier. Okay. What we're going to do is take our USB-C cable. Okay. We're going to use that for this. All right, and you want to make sure your radio has a decent charge in it, like I said. Okay, so I'm going to turn the radio off right now. All right, and we have a USB port on the bottom and then a USB port on the top. One on the bottom is for charging, the one on the top is for data. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plug this one into my transmitter with it turned off. Okay, and then on the other side of that plug, I'm going to plug into my computer. Okay, with the radio turned off. All right. You guys probably can't hear that sound, but there's a little window da-dun sound. Okay, and I'm going to flip over to my browser. Okay, so you need to use, I think the Chrome browser is the best for this. I prefer Firefox, but Firefox doesn't work for this process, unfortunately. So we'll go in our Chrome browser. Okay, and we're going to navigate to something called EdgeTX Buddy. Now I have it saved right here, but if you don't have it saved, you just go EdgeTX Buddy, search for that. Okay, here it is. Make sure we're still getting all this on the recording. Okay, looks like we are good. And this is basically an update tool. It's pretty handy, pretty easy to use, and pretty awesome. So all we have to do is make sure that our computer recognizes our transmitter with that da-dun, that it shows up, that our computer has seen it. Okay? And we'll be able to tell if it saw it here in a second as well. The latest firmware at the time of recording this video for EdgeTX is 2.9.0, so a version newer than what I had on the radio, which was 2.8. But if you want to pick a different version for somewhere else, for some other reason, they're all right here. Okay, I'll go ahead and update this radio to 2.9. So we're going to pick our radio model. I'm going to find our Radio Master TX12 Mark II. Okay, there's stickers on your radio if you bought this TX12 that help you make sure you realize this is a Mark II, not the Mark I. They're two different radios. Okay, Mark II is what we're going to select there. Okay, and once we have that selected, we can then hit flash via USB. Okay, so I'm going to hit that button there. It's going to say add a device to get started. Here's where we can tell if our computer recognized the transmitter or not. Add new device. Okay, you have all these devices. Let's see if you guys can see that. You can't see the pop-up, unfortunately. That's not recording it. Bummer. Okay, let's see if we can fix that real quick. Sorry, give me just a second. I thought I had it all ready to go. Thought I had it all ready to go before I started, but not quite. Give me just a minute here. Okay, this should work. So in the EdgeTX Buddy, we go to add a new device. We see this pop up over here. These are all the different devices connected to your computer. Okay, I have a bunch right now because I have my screen recording going and my microphone and everything. Anyways, you're looking for one called STM32 bootloader. Okay, that's going to be your radio. Odds are it's going to be your radio for most of you. Okay, you shouldn't have any other STM32 devices plugged into your computer right now. If you do happen to know what that is already and you have another device plugged in, unplug it. Okay, but for most of you, it's just going to show up as one device here, STM32 bootloader. You're going to hit that. You're going to hit connect. Okay, I'm going to flip back over to the other view now. It's a little bit cleaner. There we go. All right, so we've selected our STM32 bootloader. Okay, we're going to hit next. Right, and it says firmware is 2.9 onto the STM bootloader. That is correct. We have our Radio Master TX12 Mark II right here. Okay, I'm going to hit start flashing. Okay, and if all goes well, it should basically do this process here. It's going to erase the old firmware, update to the new firmware, and then we're in business. So this is good. You don't need to update your radio, every single new version if you don't want to, but might as well since we're doing this video. And it will take a minute to flash here. Sometimes as it writes the new firmware, that's okay. So while that's working, I'll tell you a bit more about what this process is going to do. Once we update EdgeTX, like I said, the pass-through functionality is what it's called, allows us to be able to. Awesome, we got some people in the hallway working on stuff or something. And so basically what that allows you to do is you can go through the EdgeTX firmware and be able to update the Express LRS firmware natively, if that makes sense. You don't have to do any special configuration. You just use it as a pass-through, and that's how that works. All right, everybody. Sorry about that interruption there. We had someone come to fix the door on the lab while I was recording. So you missed a little bit of this, but it was flashing when we last watched the video. Now the flashing's done. So your radio's been flashed with EdgeTX. Boom. We should be on 2.9 now. When we turn the radio on, we'll check that again, but it should be on 2.9, and now we're finished. Okay. There's an SD card content thing up here. You can look at that if you want to. You don't really need to update that per se. for an update of this type. But basically what that does is the SD card is where all of your models are stored and your settings. So if you've set up a couple different aircraft, then they would be stored here on the SD card, and you can update those type of files as well if you want. But I'll just go back to this one more time to refresh. I might have gone a little bit fast. Once you go in here, you'll pick your EdgeTX version, and then just make sure you select your radio model. Okay. And then you'll just hit flash via USB. And there's our STM32 bootloader we had to select from that drop down earlier. And then you would basically just hit next and get this here, and you'd say start flashing. I'm not going to do it again, of course, but that's all there is to updating EdgeTX. It's really gotten a lot easier, like I said, in the last couple of years, last year or so. EdgeTX has developed quite quickly, I guess you could say, lots of updates and stuff. So it's a pretty cool operating system to be using on your radio. All right, so we're going to go back here and flip back over to the camera. Okay, so at this point, I can unplug my radio from the computer. Okay, and we will turn it on. It's going to look pretty much the same. One of those things on the SD card would be the splash screen there, the EdgeTX splash screen. So you can change what that does when it turns on, but I don't really mind it, so it's fine. We're going to go into System again. Go page over all the way to 7. Okay, and now we should see EdgeTX 2.9 Providence. Okay, great. So our EdgeTX is now updated. That's basically the first step in this process. Once you've updated EdgeTX, you can then use that pass-through functionality in order to update the Express LRS internal module of your radio. We'll do that in the next video.